Yeah. So as you know, when we gathered together about a week or two ago and talked about the fact that our numbers were moving in a concerning direction, and we wanted to prepare parents and families and the community for the possibility that we would be switching to a hybrid model on the 19th. We also said that we were going to keep a close eye on the data and look at many different aspects of that data. What we've seen over the last week is the numbers, while they are higher than they were earlier in September and certainly higher than they were in August and July, they have been stable this most recent week over the last. That's particularly true if you exclude the fairly large number of cases that came out of Trinity College over the last week. So we've done our best to break down that data to understand what's driving it. And so far we have seen those numbers, again, at a higher plateau, but relatively stable this most recent week over the prior week. The other important thing is that we still have not yet identified significant transmission inside schools. There is one example of a school, Mary Hooker, which we closed for 2 weeks because there were a number of cases identified in that school. But thus far, we have not seen other significant examples of transmission in schools, and we've always said that would be an important factor that we look at as well. I think it's important to acknowledge there is no easy answer here. These are difficult calls. There are pressures and imperatives on each side. We want to do everything we can to keep our community healthy and safe. We also know that for the 7,000 kids who are currently studying in person in our schools, a switch in the model would be a profound disruption to their education, to their families, in many cases to their social and emotional learning and well-being as well. And so we have to balance the risk that we may get to a place where there is transmission happening in schools against the certainty of massive disruption to the educational opportunities for our kids. And as of now, where we have come down is that we are going to give it another week, and we're going to continue to assess. And it may be that we go week by week. It's entirely possible that if the data stays stable or goes down, that we may be able to stay in longer. But we will also pay very close attention to that data, and if we see indications that the trends are accelerating or that there is additional transmission identified in schools, then we, again, as we've prepared everybody for, then we will be ready to make that switch to a hybrid model.
So you said 7,000 are in class.
Correct.
That means the other 11,000 have decided to
That's right.
remote.
Yeah.
Do you have numbers in terms of how many students have been getting tested through the nurse's office? Or through the
I don't have those right now. I'm sure we could get those for you, but I don't have them right now.
How much of the consideration is the needs of Hartford versus maybe another district, the difficulty to get access to technology and internet, English language learners, all kinds of needs?
The question is, how much do we think that Hartford has unique circumstances, a unique challenge versus other communities when it comes to connectivity. Look, I think that we've made tremendous progress in getting our students equipped with laptops and with technology. I think we've made a lot of progress with addressing those connectivity concerns. But those aren't the only concerns. As in many communities, but certainly here, you've got a lot of parents who are working. And if the kids aren't in school, they may well have to be in some other kind of daycare setting. And it may possibly be a setting where there is less structure and less, less rigor when it comes to the precautions that are taken. We have seen transmission happening at homes. We've seen transmission happening out in the community. Right now, we have not seen that significant transmission in schools, and that's, again, one of the reasons why we think that this is the right decision for now.
You referenced Trinity College. Were the numbers including into what the Hartford school system was seeing? Is that where the confusion is?
Well, the numbers that Trinity College, the Trinity College students who test positive are reported in Hartford's aggregate numbers. So looking at, and there was a fairly significant number of positives identified in the Trinity College community. As you know, they decided to switch to fully remote. So I think it was important to distinguish broader community spread and the rates of positivity with those Trinity numbers included and without those Trinity numbers included. And when you take those numbers from Trinity College community out, we saw a more stable trend rather than an accelerating trend. But again, I want to stress, I mean, this is a close call and not an easy one. We're balancing our responsibility and our deep desire to do everything we can to keep our community safe with our equally important responsibility to make sure that we're doing our best to care for every kid in this community and provide educational opportunities and allow for those children and parents who chose in-person school and are relying on that in-person school to continue to have that option available for as long as we responsibly can.
I know initially the school district had set certain bars in terms of the number of daily cases for Hartford County, but it now sounds like it's going to be a little bit more subjective because
well, I think we have, the state has put out guidance. We have said from the start that we would be looking at many metrics, that we would look at the number of cases per 100,000 per day. We would look at the test positivity rate, and that we would look at the amount of transmission that we're identifying in schools. So we have said all along that there's not one single metric that's going to drive these decisions. We're going to use all the information that's available to us, and we're going to do our best to make the responsible decision that best meets the needs of our community and does the best to keep our community safe while at the same time keeping educational opportunities as fully open to every kid as possible.
And how concerned are you that the cases here in the city are increasing? Eventually the schools are going to have to go to a more restricted
Look, I think as you've heard before, the school district is prepared to move to hybrid. They want to stay open as long as they responsibly can as well. We have prepared families for that switch. I think it remains very likely that at some point we will make that switch. But based on what we've seen over the last week, we think we can give it another week and reassess.
Came out with a statement basically calling out city leadership, saying there's flaws in the accountability bill that are responsible for this spiking crime. What do you have to say about that?
So I spoke this afternoon with the union president. Look, I want to say, first of all, I think the men and women of the Hartford Police Department are doing an extraordinary job under difficult circumstances. It is always hard to be a police officer, and it's probably more difficult right now than ever. But what I'd also say is that if you look at the number of arrests that our officers are making when it comes to taking illegal guns off the street, solving homicides and making homicide arrests, making arrests for stolen vehicles, that data does not show a picture of a police department that is standing down on their responsibilities. And I think to suggest that the violence that we're seeing is because the men and women of the Hartford Police Department aren't doing their job does a disservice to the men and women who are out there working really hard every day. I do think that, as I've talked about many times over the past few days, there are many causes and many complex causes for the spike in gun violence. But what I see, again, particularly when it comes to violent crime, to gun arrests, to auto theft, which is often associated with gun violence, I see our officers working their hearts out.